Star Trek Enterprise may be a love or hate show for some Trekkies, but there's no denying that the series introduced some fantastic starship designs not only for humanity but also for the other alien races. We'll have to talk about the Vulcan fleet another day, because today we're shining a light on the Andorian Battlecruiser known as the Kumari, which was placed under the command of Commander Shran. The ship was seen alongside the NX-01 Enterprise on more than one occasion, as well as playing a role in helping save Earth from the Xindi Crisis of 2154. How did the ship come about? Before the Kumari came on screen in Enterprise Season 3, we had not really seen much of the Andorian Fleet on screen in Star Trek. In today's Trek Central Starship Breakdown, we beam down to check out the Andorian Battlecruiser. Welcome to Trek Central, I'm your host, Captain Jack. Before we warp into this video, if you want to keep up to date on all the latest Star Trek news, lore and more, make sure to hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media for daily updates on the Star Trek universe. As always, please let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you're talking about Star Trek, then we want to hear about it. Okay, engage. The Andorian Battlecruiser came into a length of 360 meters. For context, the NX-01 Enterprise was around 225 meters in length. The hull of the Kumari Class Battlecruiser was made of duranium alloy. The hull configuration consisted of an engineering section with two weapon/engine pods mounted on wing-like pylons. The shuttle and cargo bays were placed on the central hull. Meanwhile, a dart-like saucer section would house additional crew decks as well as the main bridge of the ship. Speaking of the cargo bays, the vessel contained at least 3 bays. The third seemed to be the main bay and was located on the ventral section of the ship, near the centre of the vessel. Force field shielded the bays from radiation. Tactical system-wise, the Kumari class ships were equipped with particle cannon weapons, reflector shields, and a powerful tractor beam capable of towing some vessels. The class did seem to lack torpedo launchers. 5 of the particle cannon emitters were positioned on the fore, port, starboard, ventral, and dorsal hulls. Each of the emitters would have a 180-degree firing arc, allowing for the ship to have great reach in tactical situations. While the deflector shields allowed for strong defense for a ship of that era, the lack of polarized hull plating did leave the hull weaker than would be expected. The ship was designed for war, mainly because the Andorians were on the brink of war with species such as the Vulcans and the Tellarites. The ship was capable of speeds in excess of Warp 5 and features a matter-antimatter reactor for propulsion. A Kumari class battlecruiser typically had around 86 personnel assigned. The tactical focus and speed of a Kumari class made it a match for the Vulcan class warship. In case of emergency, the ship was equipped with escape pods. The interior design of a Kumari class was clean and modern. 5 officers typically crewed the main bridge of a battlecruiser, and the commanding officer would sit in the command chair. Like Federation ship designs, the officer stations were visible to the commander. Officers on the bridge of his vessel typically included the executive officer, navigators, and flight controllers. A ready room for use by the ship's commanding officer was located off of the bridge. At least one of these battlecruisers, the Kumari, had an interrogation room. This was a small room that contained one interrogation chair and controls to operate the technology. There was a machine that created a neurosynaptic field which could lower a victim's emotional threshold rather than cause physical discomfort. The ever-evolving political landscape of interstellar affairs demanded new starship designs. As such, the Andorian Empire officially launched the Imperial Guard ship, Kumari, in 2142. As the first of her class, we refer to the Andorian Battlecruiser as the Kumari Class Battlecruiser. In the same year as her launch, the ship was placed under the command of Commander Shran. The ship was actually named after the first ice cutter to circumvent and navigate the planet of Andoria. Due to the Andorians' feud with the Vulcans, more and more of the Kumari Class Battlecruisers were built and launched by the Imperial Guard. In December 2153, the Kumari entered the region of space known as the Delphic Expanse, in search of the Earth ship Enterprise. Under the command of Shran, the Andorian vessel spent several weeks following the Enterprise's warp trail. The battlecruiser finally caught up with the NX-01 and rendered assistance in capturing the Xindi prototype weapon. However, while the gesture seemed like good faith towards humanity, it was eventually discovered that the Andorians intended to take the Xindi prototype for themselves. Enterprise Captain Jonathan Archer prevented Commander Shran from doing so. He remotely armed the Xindi weapon, which was docked within the Kumari, and threatened to detonate it. Shran did not back down, and Archer activated the detonation sequence. Thankfully, the Kumari escaped the destruction but did sustain heavy damage. In February 2154, the Kumari detected the finished Xindi weapon en route to Earth through a subspace vortex. Intending to repair human-Andorian relations, Commander Shran took the Kumari and followed the Xindi weapon. This proved to be a success, as the battlecruiser arrived shortly after the weapon and the Xindi Degra's personal starship. Shran continued to aid the mission of destroying the Xindi weapon by providing covering fire for Degra's ship against Commander Dolim's Xindi reptilian warships. Shran and the Kumari's distraction allowed Captain Archer to beam himself and an away team on board the Xindi weapon and destroy it, ultimately saving Earth. While Archer fought his way aboard the weapon, the Kumari continued to engage Dolim's command ship and ultimately destroyed it by targeting and firing on the ship's unshielded starboard engine. Late in the year of 2154, the Kumari was assigned to lead a covert task force of 5 warships inside a nebula. Once again under Shran, her mission was to monitor local space. At least 3 of the other warships assisting the Kumari all appeared to be Kumari Class battlecruisers. They seemed to be in the same configuration as the Kumari, and likely were new versions of the ship. Under the command of acting Captain Tucker, the NX-01 Enterprise soon arrived and sought to warn the Andorians and Shran of the Vulcan's intent to invade Andoria. Enterprise was able to locate the Kumari with the help of Vulcan Ambassador Saval. Shran did not trust Saval, but eventually agreed to pass the information to the Imperial Guard. The Guard eventually agreed to redeploy the fleet of Andorian ships, along with the Enterprise. Just before this, Commander Shran did kidnap Ambassador Saval for a quiet chat aboard the Kumari. The Andorian Fleet, assisted by Enterprise, was victorious in holding off a dozen Vulcan cruisers in the Battle of Andoria, which took place on the outskirts of the Andorian system. The Andorian and human fleet were able to hold off the Vulcan ships long enough for Captain Archer, who was on Vulcan, to provide enough information to the Vulcan High Command that led to the removal of Administrative Alas. The Kumari, Enterprise, and several other ships sustained damage but ultimately survived. In November 2154, the Kumari escorted the Andorian ambassador to a trade conference on Babel. During this escort mission, the ship was attacked by what appeared to be a Tellarite vessel. Unfortunately, the Kumari sustained critical damage and was ultimately destroyed during the engagement. Thankfully, Commander Shran and Lieutenant Talas made it to the escape pods and evacuated in time. Enterprise later rescued the survivors. Only 19 of the 86 crew members escaped the ship's destruction. It was later revealed that the Romulan drone ship was responsible for destroying the Andorian Battlecruiser. In Star Trek's extended canon, the Kumari Class starship would continue to serve the Andorian Empire for years to come following the loss of Kumari. Kumari Class battlecruisers would later participate in the Earth-Romulan War. Unfortunately, due to a confederacy of Vulcan convincing the Andorian Empire to drop out of a war, the coalition of planets was eventually dissolved and the Andorians withdrew. With the founding of the United Federation of Planets, the Kumari Class starships were still the mainstay of the Andorian Guard. They would take up the mantle of a defense arm of the new Federation Starfleet from 2161 onwards. For example, in 2163, a task force led by the USS Vinkafen included several of these ships. In Star Trek Online, which takes place in its own storyline during the 25th century, Starfleet produced several new starship classes to defend the Federation against new threats. During the Federation Klingon War of 2405 to 2410, Andoria supplied Starfleet with 3 escort classes. These designs were based on the original Kumari class, but heavily redesigned for use in modern settings. These new ships included a heavily redesigned Kumari class vessel launched in 2409. The other 2 ships were subclasses, including the Charal and Kaizon. The design of these 3 escort types was modular, which allowed each design to share pieces of the other. Following severe attacks on Earth's space dock by Species 8472 in 2410, the Imperial Guard vessel Kaizon was stationed at Earth. In one of Star Trek's many alternative timelines, in which the Vulcans had remained a violent and emotional species, General Shran commanded the Kumari during the Xindi Crisis. When the Xindi targeted Andoria for destruction, Shran responded and used the Kumari to carpet bomb the planet of Xindus into submission. In the 23rd century, the commander of the IUES Kumari II would create a display of his ship's 7 predecessors in the new briefing room, including the IGV Kumari. Legendary Star Trek concept artist John Eves would be given the task of designing the Kumari-class Andorian Battlecruiser. As we know, the Andorians had been around for decades before they actually finally got a ship of their own in the Star Trek universe. The Kumari class would make its first appearance in the Enterprise episode Ceasefire. Eves would go on to mention that although the Andorian species first appeared in 1967, he had very little to work on when it came to creating a ship for them. During his interview with the Hero Collector magazine, Eves said, "A lot of times I tried to do a retro version of what we'd seen before, but we'd never seen an Andorian ship, so it was open for me to figure out what we wanted to do." As you can see on screen, Eves would go on to sketch various design alternatives on a single piece of paper. This was done so the Star Trek Enterprise producers had something to choose from. Initially, we can see Eves wanted to go with a more organic manta ray approach. There was even a suggestion of antennae as a nod to the famous Andorian makeup design. Eves notes that he was surprised when the producers chose a much thinner, rocket-like design. The design process led to the final design having two distinctive inspirations, one being a World War II seaplane and the other being Battlestar Galactica. This came to be as it was around the same time that the reimagined series of Battlestar Galactica was starting up. Speaking of which, if you like Battlestar Galactica, then head over to the Hangar Bay YouTube channel to check out the Battlestar Galactica ship breakdowns we've recently done. Johnny's also revealed that the pontoons of an old aircraft inspired the Kumari's engines and wings. It seems a lot of his inspiration came from an old World War II aeroplane. Eves recounted how his visit to the Phoenix Air Museum led him to discover the airplane called the Mariner, which had a double-jointed wing. Once Eves' final sketch was approved, it was passed to Eden FX without additional drawings. Pierre Droulet then completed the design, refining it as he went. The Andorian Battlecruiser would appear in 8 episodes of Star Trek Enterprise, with one of those being In a Mirror Darkly Part 2. The designs also since appeared in the animated comedy series of Star Trek Lower Decks. So that's our in-depth look at the Andorian Kumari Class Battlecruiser. What do you think of this ship? Personally, I think it's one of the best designs to come out of Star Trek Enterprise. If you want to keep up to date on all the latest Star Trek news, lore and more, then make sure to hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media or join our community Discord server. For now, I've been Captain Jack, thanks for watching and we'll see you next time. Live long and prosper my friends, goodbye.